I must admit to being pro-currente when it comes to modern firearms of the day. Nothing really stands out to me. Like the C4 Corvette, which I considered as the ho-hum series of Corvettes, most modern pistols are simply variants of the same theme. It takes a lot for me to get excited about new firearms. So why would I get excited about the Glock G28? After all, it has been available for many years. While that may be true, it has only been available not in the United States, but now it is. Thanks to a contract with Glock and Talo Industries, 10,000 of these little puppies are being manufactured in the United States at the Glock facility in Smyrna, Georgia. More, or none, may come later, depending on demand. I think that the G28 could become a mainstay of the Glock US of A lineup, but only demand will tell. I think that another 380 ACP variant that is available only in Europe may also make its way into being manufactured in the United States, but that is only speculation at this point and may never happen, or even if it should. With the Glock G42 being a popular subcompact pistol that is chambered in 380 ACP and with a 6-round magazine capacity, a 10-round magazine capacity of the same caliber should be even more popular, one would think. Additionally, as shown in the EU Glock description of the G28, capacity magazines such as 12, 15, and 17 rounds may also be available at some time in its future. There is a question mark behind that, however. That is indicated only on the EU Glock site. The pistol is so new to the US market that it is not even showing up on the US Glock website. The Glock G28 was not the first on the scene in Europe, however. The Glock 25, introduced in 1995, is a blowback derivative of the compact Glock 19, but in 380 ACP caliber. The standard magazine capacity is 15 rounds, with a 17-round option. Standard fixed sight elevation is 6.9 mm, unlike the 6.5 mm elevation used for the 9x19 mm models. The Glock G28, introduced in 1997, is a blowback derivative of the subcompact Glock G26. The standard magazine capacity is 10 rounds, but the 15-round Glock 25 magazine will function in the Glock G28. Standard fixed sight elevation is 6.9 mm, unlike the 6.5 mm elevation used for the 9x19 mm models. So, let's take a look-see at this little critter, the Glock G28, and see what, if anything, it holds for us. While I am showing the basic specifications for the G28 from the EU Glock website, most folks would ask, what am I looking at here? And what can I compare this to? Those are valid questions, so let's do a comparison with a comparable size Glock, the G26. As you can see in the comparison, the only difference between the G28 and the G26 is the weight, due to the G26 being chambered in 9mm and the G28 being chambered in 380 ACP. But there is more to it than that, which I will address later. Dimensions are the same for both pistols. If you currently own or are familiar with the G26, you will feel right at home holding the G28, all while shooting a much milder recoiling handgun. One question that comes to my mind is, Can I use magazine extensions that will fit the G26 on the G28? I'm going to answer that later. The Glock G28 is based on the Gen 3 series of Glocks, and as such, shares all features found on other Gen 3 pistols. So, let me do a quick rundown of these. The sights are the standard polymer front dot and rear outline notch rear sight. The rear sight is, of course, drift adjustable for windage. Since the front and rear sight is standard Glock fare, they can be exchanged with better sights according to your preference. One difference that can be readily noticed between the G28 and other Glock pistols is the barrel. The barrel of the G28 does not lock up like other Glock barrels. While still of the tilting barrel design, the front end of the chamber does not seal against the slide at the front. Why this chamfered chamber end design is not carried over to the G42, I can't answer. The barrel length of the G28 is 3.43 inch, as compared to the 3.25 inch barrel of the G42. Could this have something to do with it? Or could it have more to do with recoil spring rates and the tension between the front of the chamber and slide and full lockup? I really do not have an answer. The external shape of the chamber is different, but it seems to work. Is it something to really cavil over? What I can surmise is that the chamber length of the G28 has been cut back to work with the 380 ACP cartridge, which is shorter than a 9mm cartridge. This shortens the chamber to groove lead that is necessary to reduce bullet jump from chamber to the groove portion of the barrel. With that said, rechambering for the 380 ACP cartridge could have been done without altering the external barrel dimensions. Or could it? I really don't know. It could be as simple as a means to differentiate between two identical sized pistols that chamber different cartridges. The barrel is the Glock polygonal barrel, and as is normal with these barrels, the operator should refrain from shooting lead projectiles. Jacketed bullets only, please. The recoil assembly is of the dual spring captivated type guide rod, and which has a substantial spring rate, in my opinion, for a pistol intended to fire the 380 ACP. Range work with the pistol will tell the story, and I have a feeling that this pistol will prefer plus P 380 ammunition. I will let you know in the range segment of this review. And now for some notable facts regarding the frame, the lower assembly. Like the G42, G26, and other subcompact Glock pistols, the frame does not incorporate an accessory rail. Unlike later generation comparable sized Glocks, the G28 lacks grip adapters, replaceable back straps. What you feel is what you get, unless you are into tape or grip sleeves. The G28 is a 3-pin system as compared to a 2-pin system. With the G28, that exhibits less stress on the frame under fire, the locking block pin is really not needed. The locking block pin was a carryover from earlier times with the G19. You can research 3-pin versus 2-pin Glock systems on your own, if you wish. The slide stop is in its usual place and is readily accessible with the thumb of the shooting hand. The slide stop, however, is typical Gen 3, very thin and difficult to press down to release the slide. Of course, the slide lock can be replaced with an aftermarket, more pronounced slide lock, if you have a hankering to use the slide lock as a slide release. As with the magazine catch and release button, the slide lock is left side only. The G28 retains the slide lock leaf spring, as is normally found in Gen 3 pistols, but was changed to a coil spring in later generations. As mentioned, the magazine catch and release button is left side only, small, and the same found as on the Glock G26 Gen 3. I have come to enjoy the magazine catch and release buttons on later Gen 4 and Gen 5 pistols, and will miss that feature on the G28. The grip texture is the same as the Glock G26 Gen 3, as are the finger grooves. I prefer the grip on my G26 Gen 5, but that is neither here nor there. It is what it is on the Gen 3, like it or not. The grip width, length, and girth feel the same on the G28 as they do on the G26 Gen 3. Aside from the grip length being somewhat short for my liking, the grip is adequate and would probably be suited for those with smaller hands, but who would like a wider than a G42 grip surface, like me, who added a grip sleeve to my G42 so that it better fits my hand. The front and rear of the grip are highly textured, as usual. Nothing to note here. The front of the trigger guard is, also as usual, squared off and serrated for those who like to use it. The trigger is, as expected, not as refined as that found on later generation Glock pistols. I had forgotten the differences between triggers until the G28 reminded me of them. While workable, once you pull a Gen 5 Glock trigger, you will yearn to install a trigger kit in the G28 to make it more workable. For those in the know regarding Glock triggers, the face of the trigger is serrated. When the trigger is pulled, there is a bit of free play when the integral trigger safety is pressed into the trigger. From that point, there is a, what I think, heavy drag until the trigger hits a wall. From there is an even heavier drag until the firing pin is released. The brake is clean with no over travel. Trigger reset is very near the rear of the trigger guard, which does make the trigger of the G28 a bit better than some I have pulled, but not as good as later gen triggers. Still, it would be an acceptable trigger for defensive work. The trigger pull weight on this little beauty is 3 pounds 11.7 ounces with a 5-pull average. Of course, the G28 uses the Glock Safe Action trigger system. That consists of the 3 independent safeties: trigger safety, firing pin safety, and drop safety. Let's talk about the magazines for a short bit. The 10-round G28 magazines are different from the standard flat rear-faced magazine. Rather than inserting a spacer into the back of the magazine to accommodate the shorter 380 ACP cartridge, Glock G28 magazines are intended to easily distinguish them from larger caliber 9mm counterparts without looking. G28 ships with 2 10-round magazines. At the time of this review, magazines for the G28 from stateside distributors such as Palmetto State Armory and the Glock Store are not available, but I'm sure that will change. As I mentioned earlier, I needed to know if magazine extensions for the G26 or any 9mm magazine could be used with the G28 magazines. I decided to call Glock and inquire about that. According to Glock, magazine extensions that fit G26, G19, G17, etc. will work with the G28 magazine. That is good news, and I have ordered 2 Pierce magazine extensions for my G28. Next on the talking point list is the finish of the G28. It has been said that the toughest, most rust corrosion resistant Glock finish was the Gen 3 Glocks with actual tenifer underneath it. However, I contacted Glock and was informed that the G28 does have the Glock proprietary NDLC finish, which is touted to be the best yet from Glock. This is one welcomed upgrade, in my opinion. According to Glock, the NDLC ion bonded finish reduces corrosion and scratching and improves performance in adverse or degreased conditions. Last on the talking point list is the weight of the G28. Although physical dimensions of the G28 and G26 are the same, there is a slight difference in weight. But what is the cause of the difference? I had to find out. It would seem, of course, that the weight difference would lie in the slide assembly. The weight of the G26 slide assembly is 15 ounces. The slide weight of the G28 is 14.2 ounces. So there you go. There's also a slight difference in the weight of the frames without the magazine. Frame weight for the G28 is 4.3 ounces, and 4.5 ounces is the frame weight of the G26. Performing maintenance on the G28 is no different than performing maintenance on other Glock pistols. Disassembly, cleaning, lubricating, assembly, and function testing all follow the same procedures. Let's do a quick walkthrough for those unfamiliar with maintaining a Glock pistol. For you old-timers to Glocks, bear with me as I present this. Perform a safety check first. Remove the magazine. Lock the slide to the rear with the slide lock lever. Inspect the chamber to ensure that the pistol is empty. And finally, remove any ammunition from the immediate vicinity. To disassemble the G28 from this point, pull the slide to the rear slightly to release it from the slide lock. Slowly ride the slide into battery. Pull the trigger. Pull the slide back slightly. Pull the takedown lever down to release the slide. Separate the slide and frame assemblies. Turn the slide upside down. Remove the captivated guide rod assembly. And then remove the barrel from the slide. This is as far as you need to go to disassemble the G28 for cleaning, inspection, and lubrication. For cleaning and lubricating the G28, I am simply going to recommend that you refer to the Instruction for Use manual. I could show you how to properly clean and lubricate the G28 here, but I would bore you to death and waste your time. The Instructions for Use manual has all the pertinent poop on maintaining the G28, or any Glock pistol for that matter. After cleaning, inspection, and properly lubricating the G28, it's time to assemble it. Install the barrel into the slide and ensure that it is properly seated. Install the captivated guide rod assembly. Assemble the slide and frame. Pull the slide fully to the rear and lock it into place with the slide lock. You can perform a function test without using snap caps, but I prefer to use them for checking firing, extraction, ejection, and to see if the slide will lock back on an empty magazine. Load 3 snap caps into a magazine. Install the magazine into the pistol. Release the slide to chamber the first snap cap. Attempt to pull the trigger with the trigger safety lever not pressed. The pistol should not fire. Attempt to pull the trigger with the trigger safety pressed. The pistol should fire. Cycle the slide to extract and eject the first snap cap. Chamber the second snap cap and pull the trigger, again with the trigger safety fully pressed. Do not release the trigger. With the trigger held to the rear, retract the slide fully. The second snap cap will be extracted and ejected. Allow the slide to go fully into battery, chambering the last snap cap. Slowly allow the trigger to move forward. You will feel the trigger reset point. Pull and release the trigger, and retract the slide one more time to extract and eject the third and final snap cap. The slide should lock back on an empty magazine. I don't know about you, but I think that I need to take the G28 to the range to really see what this pistol is all about. Looking forward to the first range day with the G28, I loaded the 2 magazines that came with the pistol to 9 rounds each, simply to begin breaking in the magazines, and let them sit for a couple of days. That effort required the up-lula loading tool to be used, as the springs in these magazines are stiff. The first thing to do was establish what the G28 was telling me, and how I was going to respond to that. Then, I could move on to some Mozambique drills to see if I was going to be effective at all with the G28. As with the G26, the arch at the rear of the grip presses into my hand where I don't want it to press. Primarily, I am using 2 fingers to hold the grip, which does not distribute the pressure of the grip against my hand equally. In short, the grip does not fit my hand as well as the grip on the G45, G19, G17, and large Glock pistols such as the G21, G30, G22, and G20. The arch on the Glock subcompact pistols just rubs me the wrong way, like the panel of the View. Today's fodder was a Gia 95 grain FMJ and Cellier and Belo 92 grain FMJ. I also wanted to run a few Sig Sauer 90 grain JHP and Remington Ultimate Defense 102 grain BJHP to test running hollow point ammunition. With the target at 7 yards, it was time to play. Glock G28 looks and feels like the G26 Gen 3 9mm version, with the exception of a milder felt recoil due to the 380 ACP cartridge. I found the sights to be acceptable for the up-close and personal range work that I was doing, although the polymer Glock sights are not among my favorite sights. If I decide to keep the G28, it will probably be outfitted with a better set of sights. The slide is stiff to operate and is much stiffer than comparable size 380 ACP pistols in the marketplace. If I decide to keep the G28, I will probably exchange the slide lock with an extended unit that allows for easier release of the slide for those occasions when I decide or need to use one-hand chambering. Accuracy is on par with other pistols of this caliber. What it comes down to is how well the operator can do their part, and I must admit that I am not the best of operators when it comes to subcompact and micro-compact pistols, regardless of caliber. The G28, even in my hands, is accurate enough for up-close and personal work. The takeaway is that if you are used to operating the G26 9mm pistol, the G28 will be very familiar in the hand while experiencing lesser felt recoil when shooting. Now, another comparison needs to be made. That is to be with the Glock G42, a 6-round single-stack 380 ACP pistol. The G42 is lighter and slimmer than the G28. I had to add a whole grip sleeve to my G42, something that the G28 does not need, as the girth of the grip is adequate for my hand. The grip length of the G42 is slightly shorter than the G28, but with magazine extensions, both feel about the same. The magazine capacity of the G42 is 6 rounds, which gives the magazine capacity win to the G28 with its 10-round capacity. However, the G28 is a bit more cumbersome to conceal due to its wider profile, but the G42 is a better pants pocket pistol. The G42 is a subcompact, as is the G28, and both shoot differently in my hand, with the favor going to the G28 due to its weight and size. While there are many thoughts rolling through my cranium, they all fade into questions, the first of which is why, and the last of which is why. While I find it great that a pistol that has only been available overseas is now made in the United States, why this pistol? That is simply a double-stack version of the Glock G26, but of lesser caliber. And why does it not have some of the updated features of the Gen 5 series of pistols? With the exception of the NDLC coding, why did Glock stay with a past generation, to Gen 3, rather than upgrading the G28 to Gen 5 standards with a Gen 5 barrel, ambidextrous slide lock, coil spring takedown lever, and reversible and larger magazine lock and release button? Just why? In a way, it is easy to say that the G28 is a quality pistol chambered in .380 ACP. With that said, I am going to end this review, but I want to end it with a question. Could we see the G25, a .380 ACP with magazine capacities of 10, 12, 15, and 17 rounds, in a platform that is very similar of the G19 being made in the US? With that said, more gun and gear reviews are coming, for as long as I am able to make them, and I hope that you can join me for them. In the meantime, stay safe out there.